we're live.
Yeah.
We are live now.
Okay, thank you for your patience. It's 5:37. I'm going to call this meeting to order.
Tucker Whitman is excused. Andy Dennison is excused. Ben Vitale,
I'm here.
Chris Petras,
Present.
Al Pinckney, Keith Batman,
He's here. He'll be in a second. He just went to get his coffee.
Hans Petcher,
Here.
Mark Strong,
Here.
Patty Nightingale,
Present.
Elaine Daly,
Here.
Tricia Kerr,
Here.
Timothy Lattimore, Michael Didio,
Here.
Ryan Foley, Aileen McNabb Coleman.
Present.
Did you just hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes or no?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation,
under God, indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Please take a moment of silence here. Thank you. Thank you for making yourselves available for this special legislature meeting that we've called to order today to discuss the American Rescue Plan and funding that has come to Cayuga County. Before we get into our meeting, we have a few things to follow on the agenda. Do we have to, Sheila, did you have anything else to do? Maybe any housekeeping? Okay. So first, we're going to start off with a presentation. Jill DeBrouwer is with us today to discuss implicit bias training opportunity that's upcoming. So I've invited her to come and share some information with us today.
Thank you. Now, is this mic'd?
Yeah, this will pick up your
Audible?
voice. Yes.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. I wanted to inform you about some implicit bias training that the Human Rights Commission in Auburn is offering. Is a one-day training with 3 days to choose from. Next Monday, June 21st, Tuesday, June 22nd, or Wednesday, the 23rd, at the Auburn Public Theater from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4, and an hour for lunch with Cafe 108 right there, or pizza and refreshments and coffee and bagels to make it comfortable for you. It's a big day. We want to address the fact that bias is human. It is survival on its most elemental level. And we all carry our bias with us. Some of it is something we're very much aware of, like, our preference for the Yankees, which of course we know they're the absolute best. And then or maybe we don't have that bias. Okay. See, and so then too, we have the bias that we're not aware of that is inherited literally over hundreds of years, culturally absorbed into our thinking and our operational habits. And those are things that can ultimately be affecting the well-being of some of our neighbors and ourselves. Now, to be aware of it is to make it possible to address it. And we don't need to blame. It's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's not even white or black. I mean, it's all of those things. But in order to address it and grow together, we need to be able to put our cards on the table, so to speak. So I won't take much of your time. I know you have a lot of work to do, but I would love to invite you to attend any one of the 3 days. There is, it's very simple to reach me. Just ask Keith. He has my cell number, and Elaine does too. Just call me and I can arrange for your participation, and we'd be honored to have you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Question for Gilda?
Yes.
I apologize for being late, but I did hear your presentation at City Hall, so we're both
Oh.
aware of good works that you're continuing to do after you.
Well, thank you. So, yeah, it's Monday,
Good to see
Tuesday, or Wednesday. So if you'd like to join us, by all means, just let me know.
Just when do you need to know by, as soon as we can?
Well, as soon as possible. There is some pre-training work to do. And it's just reading, it's YouTube's, it is a online Harvard test that you can just take for free. And it informs each of us of what our particular operational thoughts might be. That can be insightful and helpful. And it's enough resource material that I would bring to you that you could do as much as you can prior to the training and then afterward. And we will be here afterward. It's, you know, it's not a one and done event. The city is sending all supervisory personnel of every department, the police and fire and so forth. And actually, you know, the police department 5 years ago started this. And actually has encouraged and asked really as the Human Rights Commission to provide this now. Also, now implicit bias training is a part of all cadet training. Anyone who's becoming a policeman or a woman would have this as part of their actual training. And then it's reinforced over time. And we find from the police that the participants who have done it several times, that really it does over experience of it all color your decisions as you're interacting.
Well, I might dress her next to the bed and give me a hearing aid.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Gilda, if I could, so I know that this training's next week,
Yes.
and hopefully we can get back to the Human Rights Commission to, you know, come out ahead of this next time, and so we can, you know, get whoever we can from our county to join in as well. So we can
Absolutely.
be willing to work with them to do so.
And we'll, as we plan, we'll include the county for sure, of course. And, you know, we're about to do some long-term strategic planning to create a 2 to 5 year funded, and we'll all schedule together and work on it as we need it. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Another question?
It's not a question, it's a comment. I know that Tricia Kerr and myself are attending, would be happy to report back in general, certainly not as the facilitator, but would be happy to take time on an agenda to report back.
Yeah, the person who is doing the training, Dr. Sim Covington, is from Finger Lakes Community College, and he has broad experience training law enforcement in other counties. He was recommended to us by the sheriff for this training.
Elaine?
Is there some from our sheriff's department
Yes.
attending as well?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
About
Auburn
20, I
PD
think
and
it's-
Cayuga County Sheriff's Department has people
Yes.
coming.
Absolutely. And yeah, definitely from the start.
Still item one?
Gilda, is this considered summer school? I mean, I used to go to summer school. And
You know, for students who are about to fail,
yeah,
Yeah.
you could come to this and maybe get an A.
thank you.
She must know you, you know?
You don't know what it is.
Ouch.
Ouch. All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Gilda, appreciate it. Okay, up next, we have on the agenda a call for executive session that we moved up into this agenda tonight before our presentation, so I'll need a motion.
I move, Madam Chair. Second.
In a second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion. We do. Okay, so we will have to be moved to caucus one for that executive session.
Mike and Chris, the 8x8 was sent by Brittany.
No, I just, I lose.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Mike, are you planning on attending the exec session?
Mike, are you gonna go to the executive session?
You might need to take it off you.
It is.
He's on mute though.
You gonna do him?
You can't undo it. You can just start, but you can't undo it.
Okay, you're assembling.
Isn't gonna be able to join.
You may just want to kick him out.
I'll text
I
them.
don't think he's going.
Oh.
No, it's
Hey,
going.
Brittany.
No, that's what I think we have to do. It's gonna happen anyway. So,
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
Oh, he is. He's got a home run.
I think so.
Make sure it's my turn.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you were, like, I would just say.
You'll never have any. That's what-
But I'm ignorant in IT.
Yeah, this is 18. I think Tim, I came out with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yo. Oh, yeah. That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, 6:25, we're gonna go back into regular session.
Yes.
Tonight, we're gonna be discussing the American Rescue Plan. The funds were released to our county on June 7th. We got our first allocation, which is half of the amount that we are expected to get. That is $7,436,995. That was into our account on June 7th, so it is here. And it's waiting for a plan. So tonight, we want to go over some of the kind of high-level issues, and then we have a few local things to vote on. With the momentum of the release of the American Rescue Funds, there are 3 areas we identified for immediate attention. The first resolution that you're going to see tonight is to allocate $1 million to Emerson Park. This is the first step, and this first step is for matching funds. And it's also like a multiplier effect for state and local foundation funding. Second thing we're going to be discussing is to fund and establish a restaurant voucher program. Our purchasing director, John Carr, will be presenting information about that to you tonight. And third will be the public health response funding immediately to the health department for their continued work with response to the pandemic. Today, a template went out to all department heads and partner agencies in the county. That template has folks identify projects and needs within their department or within their agency. These could be projects that were eligible to the ARPA funding or are needed and don't quite fit criteria, but are areas that we can invest in. So that went out today. I've also been collecting documents, over the past couple of weeks from various agencies and various departments that were sort of ready. So I've gotten information about the DREAMS Act from Sue Dwyer. I've gotten information from Soil and Water and for some other entities that are requiring, equipments or program upgrades and things. So we're going to be getting a lot of projects to talk about. What I've done with the information that went out today to department heads is that I've asked for about a month turnaround for some, I guess a menu of projects. Some of them are low-hanging projects that are immediate, maybe shovel ready, and some will be long-term. We've asked for cost analysis, timeframes and things like that. So we'll be getting some good information, I'm sure, back from them. So at the July full ledge meeting, I want to present this body with a list of projects to consider. And as I said, some will be able to be fit into the eligibility requirements of the American Rescue Plan funding, and then some will be sort of external projects that may be just good for the county to be an investment, but that all those projects will be presented to this body. Outside of the 3 projects that we're considering this evening. Does anyone have any questions about that process so far?
I noticed in the PowerPoint that I went through before its presentation that you mentioned premium pay for essential workers. And at the end, those essential workers include staffs at nursing homes, hospitals, grocery stores, truck drivers, etc. So there's room with the etc. to add other essential worker populations.
Yes, and Lynn Marinelli, when we get to the presentation, will go over that area.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, she's going to go over the entire presentation with you. Any questions before we begin? Yes.
Madam Chair, the park is a very important thing, and I know we're going to speak about that tonight. And traditionally, we've always had the 4th of July up there, and I know we had some discussions earlier. Has the governor decided that, I mean, he had fireworks last night. Is there any chance we could have a fireworks display on the 4th, now that we can have mass gatherings and what have you?
Well, I think you were well, I know you were part of the conversation about having the fireworks on the 3rd of July, which is what we typically do here in Cayuga County. And there's not enough time and availability of resources at this point, or at that point it was a couple weeks ago, to pull that occasion together here within our county. And that had a lot to do with the availability of EMS services. That was not COVID related. Do you agree with that? I know you were here in the meeting, Mr. Lattimore.
Things have changed day by day, and I think that the governor putting some fireworks up last night was an indication that should be a go for all of us. But
Well, unfortunately, those fireworks didn't come with EMS capabilities. And that's really what we do.
I don't want to get into the law. I know you have a presentation tonight, but I would like to have in the future, I know that this room is always too small, but at the lake, it would be nice to have the undefeated football team, the undefeated girls lacrosse, and the undefeated softball team that we had in the city, get them all together so we can do some kind of celebration for the kids. And our #1 spelling, I was always terrible at spelling. And I really appreciate Ms. Soroka's abilities.
Elaine, do you have your hand up? Okay, I think I saw Paul's first. And I'll-
We will be reconvening on that next week, I hope, right? Said a couple of weeks.
I
About
believe an email was sent. I don't remember the date. Mr. Delastro, do you remember?
To reconvene on it?
Yeah.
So I've had a conversation subsequently with both the sheriff and the emergency management office. I had sent out a list of dates that are available if we wanted to reschedule. Obviously after July 3rd, there were a few dates. They were actually sent out. We are actually scheduled to talk about it next week. Now that there are no restrictions on some of the events that are out there, that may make the dates in August possible. Originally, when not knowing and kind of positing that after making a decision of about to do something after the state fair, that has a lot to do with where their emergency resources were available and then how long it would take us to get a process permit and whether or not restrictions would be lifted before then. We'd actually been looking at dates beyond that, but now that there are restrictions, we have to really look at any of the available dates on the calendar. A lot of that is driven by the actual programming going on within the park. So there are a few dates that all of our internal partners have.
If I recall, that at the end of the meeting, the 2 weeks that were committed to weddings, the Great Race weekend, we had an opening there in August.
Correct. So that was one of the days. There really weren't very many days. There were only probably 4 days between August 1st and October 1st, if you will. I can do that.
Yeah, there was
I think
two.
now with the
two in
change in the
August.
restrictions, it has allowed us to consider all of those dates now.
Well, I hope we can get together sooner rather than just keep this thing rolling.
Well, I mean, the pandemic, the psychological damage this has caused is still being counted. It would be nice to be able to get people in a positive frame of mind. I think that the governor can blow them off. I think we should be able to control our own little county.
Yes, and as I said, that's just dependent on the availability of resources, and that may mean that this county, develop a contract with other emergency services, and then, there's a cost associated with that, so it's something we need to decide on. But certainly we'll present all available options to this group. definitely postponing versus canceling has been a goal of mine since the start. So now, we're looking at those dates to see. I agree, Mr. Latimer, we definitely need something to celebrate. I also agree that thanks, and I should have started off the meeting saying this, but thank you to everyone here, all of our departments, the community at large, the health department, emergency operations, emergency management, for getting us to where we are today. And thank goodness we are at the other end of this pandemic and that we're starting to talk about recovery. I know I had a quick meeting this afternoon with Kathleen, and we're talking about, everything that's going to be opening back up here around this area and within our own building. So we can, to be less restrictive, of course. It's definitely a celebration and definitely, we're
When can the
excited.
public use our building again?
The
what-
public can
yeah.
use the building. Yep.
DMV and. all the-
DMV is Sue Dwyer's jurisdiction. I have a meeting with her at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning to discuss this. So,
Before we get into the rescue plan, you said that we're gonna receive 7 million something this year. Don't we receive another
we do. We got
tranche
half.
of money?
We got exactly half already. We have that money,
So
and we're
it's
going to get. the
being
next
in
one.
a 2-year period.
Oh, the full account was 14. I haven't got them. $14,873,990.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess with any other questions about, we just went through a whole bunch of things, yeah.
Just one, when you said you sent the template out to the department heads and agencies, does that include like the nonprofit agencies in the community?
Not yet. These are just, we sent it out to, well, Soil and Water already had it. We already have their ask. Cornell Cooperative, Employment and Training, things that we have direct department heads in, so to speak. So that would be the first. I know that when we're addressing mental health needs and the homeless population and the home housing needs in our community, certainly all those nonprofits are going to play a large role into whatever we can provide for our community with this funding. So definitely significant. Any other questions before we begin? Okay, Lynn Marinelli is going to give us we've been collecting emails, webinars, phone calls, a lot of things, both from NICEAC, from NACO, and Keith's been, he's a NACO representative, and also been providing some information to us. So we've collected some of that stuff, and we're going to give you an overview today.
Yes, so I put together a presentation for you to try and summarize and go over the highlights of the American Rescue Plan and the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds that we are receiving as a county. The rules right now are still just interim. There won't be final rules out till this fall. So there are a lot of questions coming around for the country of how to interpret some of these rules. So some things will be changing as we're going. I just want to, give you the best information we have at this time right now. There's 5 primary purposes for the use of the funds. The first one is going to be support public health response. The second one is address the negative economic impacts of COVID-19. 3 is going to be replacing the public sector revenue losses. The 4th is premium pay for essential workers. And the last initiative area is water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. The funds that we're receiving, we did receive half of it immediately, and all I had to do was kind of register ourselves, and we're getting the funds directly from the U.S. Treasury. The state is not an intermediary in this, which is very unusual. We have a few grants here or there, that we'll get directly from the federal government, but this is we're just dealing right with U.S. Treasury on this. We immediately got sent half of the funds once we had ourselves registered, and that showed up in our bank account one day, and we were kind of very surprised at that. And there will be, the next round should be coming next year, but I do believe we're going to have to be showing how we've been spending the first half before they're going to send the second half. So the first was just kind of immediate, but I don't think they'll be advancing the second one until you've been showing some spending of your funds. The funds have to be obligated by December 31st of 2024. And that would mean that you either would have spent it by that point, or you have to have a binding contract with somebody for maybe some construction work or a plan. And then that work must be completed and the funds have to be expended by December 31st of 2026. So it does give you a little bit more time if you're doing a big capital project, to at least have it locked in by the end of 24, but then you would have 2 more years to actually complete the work. The first area we can talk about is the support of the public health response. This is going to fund a broad range of services for responding to COVID-19. The most common ones that we've already been spending it on would be the vaccination program, testing, monitoring, contact tracing, purchasing PPE, disinfecting of public areas. We can also spend the money on the prevention and mitigation in congregate living facilities, jails, nursing homes, et cetera. That would also be outside of the county. They don't have to just be county owned. Ventilation improvements also in congregate settings, public health facilities and other public buildings. You can also use this funds to address disparities in public health outcomes. Some of the things that were mentioned, and these are certainly not all inclusive lists, are just some examples. Housing insecurities, impacts of COVID-19 on education, childhood health and welfare, mental health services. We can also use these funds to support local payroll and benefits for public health and the EMO, whose primary function was to respond to COVID crisis. I'm going to try and balance though using these fundings and some of our other funds that we have, state aid funds that we already have, grants that we already have, to try and maximize the revenue the best that we can for those staff. And you are supposed to use these funds to try and address disparities in public health outcomes amongst your population. The next big area will be addressing negative economic impacts from COVID-19. Here you can use funds to assist households directly with cash benefits, housing assistance, job training. We can also use it to help small businesses and not-for-profit support. This could include loans or grants that could help to either mitigate financial hardships that they had during closures. Can also use the loans and grants to help them implement COVID-19 prevention and mitigating tactics for the small businesses and not-for-profits. That would maybe be some capital infrastructure improvements. We can do a lot of things around assistance for unemployed workers, different training available for that. There's also a specific qualified census tract where you can actually provide even more services to those economically disadvantaged. And we do have only one qualified census tract in Cayuga County, and it is in the city of Auburn. That we maybe have a little bit more services we can provide.
Is our building included in that
It is
part of
not.
Auburn?
It's not. On the other side of Genesee Street, actually. On the wrong side of the street. Yeah.
According to Auburn, from our money, the city of Auburn is getting 22 million. They have 1/3 of the population of the county. Something is wrong.
Well, that was distributed by the federal government based on allocations to counties and allocations to cities. So that was just how the money was sent out. So
The quota is mandated. The quota to Auburn is mandated.
Yes.
not of our funds.
I think that's.
Not of our funds. That is a qualified census tract that I was referring to, and there's only one of these tracts in the city of Auburn. We could spend money in it, we don't have to. I just was pointing out, there is only one. There are no other ones located outside of the city of Auburn. So that's all I was pointing out with that.
Did they give it based on poverty numbers and population? Is that why? it's so-
I'm really not actually, I think it was a lot on population. But the starting pot of money was different, right, for cities versus the starting pot of money for counties.
Confusion might be that reading the QRT, 1/4 going to Auburn.
Yeah, it's not. It's
That's
that there
not-
is one qualified census tract in Auburn.
Yeah.
That's what that abbreviation is for.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's not. So none of our money has to go to Auburn.
Okay.
Correct. Yes,
Thank you.
yes. The other services of this area is we can address some homelessness and develop some affordable housing options. We can also promote healthy childhood environments. So there's lots of areas, they talk about lead abatement, there's lots of different things that you can do around that. The next area is probably the most interesting, where we can spend our money. And this is, they call it the replacing of public sector revenue losses. And a portion of the 14 million can be spent on this. And that would really be providing any government services that we currently have. So this would be the area where you have a lot of flexibility, that we don't have to meet one of these other core services. We could actually do any infrastructure project that we want. We could provide any service that we want. Wouldn't have to meet the other core areas that I'm talking about, where it has to be promoting health, it has to be promoting economic revitalization in a community hit by this. And there's a calculation that everybody has to do where you have to review the revenue on an aggregate wide for the whole county. And you look at what our revenue was in 2019. And then you can do a calculation to add 4.1% growth factor. That becomes your benchmark. And then you compare that to what was our revenue in 2020. And then you continue to do this calculation after 2021 ends, after 2022 ends, after 2023 ends. So the number will keep changing. I don't think it will ever lower. I think you can probably keep adding to it as each year if you end up having low revenue numbers. And when I do this calculation, right now, it's about $8 million of our 14 million. So what that kind of means to you is 8 million of it can be flexible to spend on what we want, but the converse would be about 6.8 million has to be spent on these other special purposes. So the response to the emergency, the involvement, and then we can go on to our next category. We also have another category of premium pay for essential workers.
So in the first phase of our 7 million, do you have what part of that could be?
That's not how you have to look at it. It's just
Okay.
out of the total. I'm just cash advancing money for you to get things started, no matter which one that you want to start working on first. It wouldn't matter. In the end, it's going to be of the total 14 million. This revenue flexibility part, you can have a little more decision on what you want to spend it on. But the premium pay that is allowed, this is retroactive back to January of 2020. And it could be for county employees, but also is actually for all your essential workers in your county. Some specific areas could be nursing homes, hospitals, grocery stores, truck drivers, et cetera. The front-facing people is really what you're supposed to be using. People who have regular in-person interactions. Specifically says teleworkers are not included in this group. It was really for the high-risk employees that were working on this. And there is a priority should be given to the low and moderate income employees. And there's actually a calculation in there that it's 150% of the average wages in your county. And if you were going to actually pay a premium to anybody who made more than that, you'd have to have special explanations actually to do that. So this is a way that they're trying to direct. The feeling is that a lot of the lower wage jobs actually had more pressure on them to have to provide in-person services during the most critical times. So that's another option. That is something that you could spend the funds on.
Heidi, Jim?
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask then, after the et cetera, can we consider our childcare workers throughout the county as part of that premium pay? They did stay open. Childcare is a notoriously underpaid profession. Most of them make less than those who are working in fast food industries. And they were working with very young children, helping parents to stay at work in the middle of this COVID, and they stayed open to do this.
They certainly would be eligible. I mean, I think it'll be up to this legislative body to determine how and what they would want to provide. Legislator Kerr, whatever the question, have we sent out requests to not-for-profit? No, I mean, this is, everyone's going to have a need. Everyone's going to have, and you have to be able to try and determine how can you, try and fairly apportion these funds to the disproportionate pools. What is our method for doing it? You know, a lot of people who are daycare providers are independently employed. I'm not even quite certain how we can give them money. But we have a lot of people who are registered daycare providers who provide it with social services. So, and a lot of things are on the table. I guess is what I'm saying. So, I mean, there's lots of options here.
Mark Strong?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It says for essential workers, is there a criteria to what determines an essential worker? Who makes that list? Is there a list?
There is not a list. I mean, pretty much the words that I put up there is kind of how they defined it for people who had regular in-person interactions or were handling a lot of items that were public. So I think that's where your truck drivers, your restaurant, I mean, I'm sorry, your grocery store workers, people who had to provide in-person services at your nursing home, your hospital, it could be anything. And I guess you just determine you want to, you know, justify above another group. So I think that's where it'll be there's no list. Okay, it's gonna be open-ended for us to determine the
Basically
list.
be up to the county
Yes.
to determine,
This body.
it'd be up to this body to determine what would be considered a essential worker.
Right.
With a priority toward the low and moderate income employees.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I know in this community, we certainly had our nursing home health aides, right? I mean, we had the issue here at the Commons. Certainly now that is that's a particular group who could be helped. They make a very low wage. There's a lot of turnover, and the ones who were kind of left standing were working a lot. And, you know, no matter how much you work, the wage, you know, remained the same, and we they were the most put sort of in harm's way and under those circumstances. So that's just an example to think about, but certainly, you know, like childcare and all that. I mean, everyone who was out there while we were all at home doing the work, we need to think about. Keith Batman and then Elaine.
Yeah, I just want to point out that this is my understanding, and probably read that memory, is that this, when you say provision of direct services, it means just that. If someone is able or did work from home, it's no longer essential worker, even if they only partially work from home. So it's got, childcare would obviously count, nursing home would obviously count, but it can't be someone who had a job part at home, part direct. It has to be 100%, as I remember.
I think the words it's what I put up there, regular, involving regular. So yes, that's it, it's implying, absolutely. But totally telehealth teleworking at all, that's all you were doing, absolutely not. I mean, so they did not want to.
If you weren't, well.
I mean, so if you came into
we'll
the
have to be
building,
careful
Keith,
with
I
this,
think if you
Mike.
came into the building and still did not interact with the public, we still might not want to give them,
Exactly.
that's what I'm saying. So it's not just working from home. It's that if you still
Yeah.
had no interaction with anybody, right, even if you came to work, that's really not a high risk situation compared to what the nursing home employees and hospital workers certainly were doing.
Elaine Daly.
Would this be premium pay adjustment for the period of the pandemic? I mean,
It could be whatever you want.
it could be
It could be
retro.
retroactive, it could be a period of retroactivity only if you wanted to. You could just say, you know, the crisis was the highest during these months.
Mhm.
And these months it wasn't, these months that it's totally open to whatever we want to do or not do, honestly. I mean, this is not a mandated thing. It is a list of options and now we're going over it.
It would not be a permanent adjustment in their wages. It would be a period of time where you give them premium consideration.
But obviously we pass these funds through to other agencies also. I mean, we would not be paying, you know, nursing home employee directly. We would
Right.
pay it to their employer. It would be.
Whatever
that
we
way.
come up with.
Yes, yeah, if we decided that that's what we wanted to do. The last
Mr. Lattimore?
group.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, other questions.
It's been so long, I almost forgot. Thank God we got out of the nursing home business when we did. But I think, like, are the expenses that we incurred during the pandemic for our EMO and everybody, you know, our nurses and everything, that doesn't come out of this pile of money. So is there another pile that they already
We have already.
We're gonna get reimbursed
We have
from
already
our
exhausted
expenses.
the grant that the health department had that covered the majority of those expenditures. So that's why we do have a resolution on the floor tonight to continue to give them some funds going forward, pretty much. So, we're not sure how much more we're gonna have to do, how much more clinics they're gonna have, how much more of that. But yes, we have absolutely been claiming FEMA where I could claim it. I've been claiming state aid and we've claimed this other grant. So really, we've covered everything so far. So, and I'm gonna do that first before going to these funds, to make sure we maximize everything. We get every dollar that we can, and then things will fall to here. So,
Well, let's say the Auburn firefighters were administering shots. Are they gonna come out of the Auburn?
yes, they
monies?
paid their own staff and they will be finding their own funds to cover that, whether they claimed it to FEMA or whether they're gonna use these funds of their own. I'm not certain, but they paid their own staff for the clinics. We didn't.
And then our clinics out at the mall, they're reimbursed, not out of this money, but the grant money.
And some state aid, yes, yeah. Yeah. So the last area that is very specific, that was identified as infrastructure area that you can spend the money on, that you don't have to use the flexible money for, would be the water and sewer areas of infrastructure investment. And they are pretty specific about the types. I think it's quite broad options, but they are really talking about projects that would qualify for financial assistance through the EPA, the Clean Water Drinking Revolving Fund, or the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. So you would know kind of which projects would be eligible for this money without any question if they would have fallen under either of those categories when we go to look at different things people bring up. And some of the things that were listed as just examples are stormwater runoff, water pollution, flood control, green infrastructure to support stormwater resiliency, replacement of failing treatment and distribution systems, construct, improve, and repair wastewater treatment plants. So a lot of options there for projects. And the last area would be also broadband infrastructure. I think that was identified as a priority, and we're supposed to, if we decided to spend any funds here, would be on the unserved and the underserved households, because I think that it was felt, that a lot of people, especially children in school, were having trouble connecting from home. And so it's definitely something that a lot of communities want to look at. The next slide, there are some ineligible uses of the funds that they specifically note. The funds cannot be used as a match for other federal funds. You cannot fund debt service. You can't use it for a legal settlement. You cannot use it to fund a financial reserve or a rainy day fund. You can only cover general infrastructure in that area that I said, of about $8 million, that is the flexible pot. Otherwise, general infrastructure projects, you want to build a building, you want to, improve the historic post office, that can't be used for that. Once we hit that 8 million cap right now. The one thing of interest though is that there was a restriction on not reducing the net tax revenue. It does not apply to counties. So that's one good piece of news. The other thing, there is a lot of reporting requirements that will be going on with this. The first report is going to be due August 31st. We're going to report on the spending through July 31st. And then there will be quarterly reports thereafter, where we're going to have to include financial data, and we're going to have to report any contracts or sub awards that we have for over $50,000. So we will be submitting, quarterly reports to show them how we're spending the money. There is no prior approval process where you submit like a budget and someone reviews your budget and then says, okay, that's approved, you can do that or not. This will be more of a, you'll report it as you're doing your projects. And I guess if there's any questions, you'll respond to them as they have them. And it's great, like I said, with the US Treasury. So there's a lot of entities that are going to be reporting to one entity, the federal government, with all this money that has been sent out. So, I think the biggest question that I still have that I'm having to pay a lot of attention to is this calculation of the revenue loss, because there are lots of questions. Are these certain federal revenues are not considered, but there's a question about whether you include pass-through revenues that are federal. which is a lot of the state, the aid that DSS gets, our biggest federal numbers are all passed through the state. And they're not clear yet whether you use them or not. So the number may be fluctuating some, so I don't want you to be surprised if I tell you a different number for that as we go forward, but it's gonna be still a substantial amount of money out of the 14 million that you have a lot of flexibility with. So I guess if you have any other questions right now over what I've talked about.
Heidi?
Madam Chair, I have a question for Lynn. Have we developed a committee to look at the priorities, bring those to the full legislature?
Well, I think that's what, Aileen was referring to earlier as we're starting. We have had, certainly some people have jumped the gun, certainly, and given us ideas, which is great. But we wanted to formally reach out to everybody so they can provide us some, projects, especially if some of them are smaller dollar amount and can be quickly done. Especially if they fall into the other area where we have to spend money on these purposes. And there are things that we've been thinking about. People have lots of information, maybe they already have prices and, we'll probably put those in a group, and then we'll have the longer term projects that are gonna take longer to, get them done. There could be RFPs involved, it could be a lot of information gathering. It could really be that you can't start it for a year or two. Even though we're getting the ideas right now, so we wanna have a mix of all of those, I think, not just, and then obviously when we decide to move on to not-for-profits, everybody obviously in the community is probably going to hear a lot on this presentation. And I'm sure that's going to get even more interest from parties who, are going to be approaching us. So I mean, I guess it'll be up to the chair how we kind of want to formally go forward, but we're still just getting our feet, I feel like, wet.
And specifically, Heidi, we had one meeting so far with the sort of committee that we put together. That includes Dave Voucher from Central New York Regional Planning, Steve Lynch from our own planning committee, Tracy Verrier from CETA, Lynn, Ben Vitale as a representative of water and sewer. Clearly that's an issue here. And then myself for now. And that's just kind of trying to hit all the eligible criteria. And certainly like when we get to, certain projects, especially if they involve mental health or homelessness, or, certainly Ray Bizarre will play a huge role in that. But this kind of group has just been kind of just to get an overview. I know Dave Voucher was great with the broadband initiative, and he's helping us with that. And certainly Tracy is helping out with the restaurant voucher program. She's helped us out so far. So that's the preliminary group we have so far.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right.
Just for clarification on that, Madam Chair, is it a group to just get an overview, or is it to establish priorities?
Right. So far, it has just been an overview group.
Okay.
The feedback that I would be getting, I would like, I don't plan to filter that feedback through a group. I mean, you're the group. So whatever I see, you'll see. These are just some tough decisions we'll be making. And I don't know if you've already been in that position. You may have already been as a legislator, but certainly I've won the lottery and I have lots of relatives who would like to pay out. So people are approaching me left, right, and they may have also be approaching members of this body. It's a tough decision. It's not a decision I'm making in a vacuum. Believe me, you're in it. You're in it to win it with me. So, but what a great problem to have, to decide how we're going to invest money into our community as a result of this terrible pandemic. So, I mean, so we're all in this together. So you can anticipate many meetings, for this purpose. Let's see. I guess, do you have any? Yeah, Trish?
In addition to this funding, a lot of the state agencies and I assume some of the federal agencies are also having their own programs funded at a higher level than normal. I've seen some RFPs come out already with unprecedented levels of funding. And I was just wondering, as projects come in, or will there be a look at what additional funding outside of this county funding might be available? And are we tracking those opportunities as they come out from the state and federal agencies of deadlines and things like that, and match requirements too?
as you're fully aware, we don't have a staff here. If there's ever a time we need a staff at the county, it is right now. And it was yesterday, it was a year ago. So just prepping for this presentation today and receiving this money. It's been done, myself and the committee that had met, but mostly the three of us in the past couple weeks, getting some things together. While I would love to make that promise, I can't. I certainly don't have that expertise to search out and pull down that money on my own. Mr. Lynch, we know, is typically the person in our county to pull that money down. We know he is also stretched pretty thin. So it's something for us to think about.
Just to comment on that, and I definitely appreciate that. And I wasn't suggesting that we actually write those grants.
Right, no, of
but
course.
It may be something where we have projects in front of us and we know this one could be funded 80% through something else.
Mhm.
That agency or that department needs to figure out a way to do that,
Yes.
to get.
Well, that actually, Trish, is a question I put on the form. I said that, and I'm also looking to be considering anything for shared services plans. So I want to know if any of these are with another municipality, and I said, are these anything that you have some funding for already?
Mhm.
So I mean, the one problem we'll have is that we can't use this as a federal match. So unfortunately, but you can use it for a state match. So if it's a state grant and we could come up with the 20%, if they've got 80, that could help maybe, bring something to fruition. So those are what we're saying, some low fruit of maybe some things that people have a lot of information on already. Bigger projects that we haven't even started yet, we're gonna have to take a lot more time to do research, talk to people, do RFPs and get options, right? Like, what do we even want to do? It's gonna take us months to figure those things out. So we'd like to get some things a little quicker. I can tell you that, interestingly enough, you're right, people should have a lot of money, but I haven't really seen it coming in DSS. So I am involved with DSS and the health department. So again, like I said, we are going to leverage and make sure we're claiming all of their dollars first before we go here to make sure that we're maximizing. If we do get larger allocations or we do get more money given to us, we will certainly do that in those two departments.
I did attend Water and Sewer Authority meeting today. I did also reach out to Senator Schumer's office concerning projects they have going on at Water and Sewer. And I made it very clear that $7 million a year for the next 2 years is a drop in the bucket compared to what we really need on a lot of issues here in the county. So the advocacy will continue. So that I don't want you to think we're just going to be on a one-track mind. I certainly will continue my end of advocating here for the county moving forward, both state and federal level. And like not being able to use this as a match at the federal level was something I brought up to Schumer's office today to say, keep it coming. So. But it's an unprecedented time where the money is flowing. So we're doing the best we can. I know Steve and the rest of the county is doing the best they can to identify grants that we can benefit from. So I don't want you to think that we've shut down and I'm just working on one thing.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Latimer. Go ahead.
The staffing level, I've always said that we should have more grant writers. And Lyndon, if you need more people to count the beans, I think you should hire them, and I think it's reimbursable, isn't it?
It is.
To keep track of the money.
Yes, it is. And
So-
administrative expenses related to this is eligible.
Well, I think during this golden time of money coming in, that we should leverage it as much as we can, as Tricia indicated. I know that the project you're interested in is the Deauville Island project. I'd like to coordinate that with the amphitheater or whatever. If we had a couple thousand people on the island attending the concert, do we have enough water and sewer to take care of that event? So hopefully we do some planning in regards to water and sewer and other issues, that when we put the infrastructure there, that we do it right. And hopefully there's going to be a presentation.
So I will say in Deauville, for the Deauville Island project, all of that is considered. New pumps, new water lines, for a new bathhouse to support, large crowds, certainly electricity, all of that is considered within that $1 million ask that's on the table for today.
Well, we might be able to leverage it even more Tricia indicated, make sure that we have the right grant writers, and
It's definitely,
political juice.
it's definitely a multiplier situation. And as you referenced about staff, I think the city of Auburn is asking for an assistant city manager with their funds to help with for the next few years.
I think I could do a good job. I know a little bit about their business.
Yeah.
Everything I learned was from Miss McNabb's father.
Well, certainly it's good to hear that there's administrative money available, because that allows us to look again at the operations manager that has failed here in the past. Certainly, there's a crossover in an operation manager's job description within this funding, and the support you need to get this funding moving and effective in the county. So I'd like us to look at that again, given this funding.
Great. Yes.
If I may, there's already money in the budget for that position. I think it's a real mistake to take the money that we have available and use it for this, which is project money. I think the point is well taken, that we do have the ability to do it, and that position may be the ideal position to provide the kind of support we need. So I think that is a great point. I think how we pay for it is it's budget. That's never been the issue. The issue. Well, I think good point. I think in terms of I think too, though, that administration money is something, I don't know why it sticks in my mind. It can't be right. For some reason, $50,000 sticks in my mind. Why would that be? That can't possibly be right. Yeah,
That was in the city's presentation that they were asking for 50,000. There's no amount.
okay, that's all it is. Yeah.
Other counties have hired extensive firms to help with, solicit public surveys and do all this work. So, I mean, if you're getting 40 million, 90 million.
It's important to remember, I think, with all that, not that these things are good to do, but every dollar we take from this grant is a dollar we don't have available for the important one-time the expenditures that we need to make. This is should not be looked at as operational money at all. It's a one-time grant over 2 years. We can use it wisely to leverage additional resources and to put something in place that will last or save a business, so that next year and year after, before we can, whatever that word is, get away. And I hope we don't get away.
To mitigate long-term chronic problems with vulnerable populations.
Yeah, it's a real opportunity.
Up next, I'm going to have Don Carr talk to us about the restaurant voucher program. I had the opportunity last night with Legislator Kerr to attend the Association of Villages in Cayuga County up in Fairhaven at Turtle Cove. I mentioned to them that we have this on the docket for this evening to vote on, that this program is something that we're thinking about. They were very excited, as was the owner of Turtle Cove. If you ever get a chance to find yourself up north, I think we have a tour guide here and here. That was a great restaurant. It was a great meeting to attend, and I met a lot of your mayors for the villages that you represent. So it was great. They also had an extensive list of ideas on how to spend the money. So, so we have Don today to talk to us about the restaurant voucher program. So take it away.
All right. Manage your roll slightly, please. All right, so as everybody probably knows, your favorite local restaurant or eatery lost a lot of business due to COVID, based off the restrictions that were put on them, whether they weren't set up for takeout before and now they had to do takeout, or they could only see 25% or 50%. So it's been a big deal. And this American Rescue Plan gives the county the ability to allocate funds to help them because they've been negatively impacted economically. The idea of this voucher program would be to allocate funds for the program, of which $50,000 would be used for the vouchers themselves. Putting this money into the industry will offer assistance to the struggling businesses and bring in some tax revenue. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar, but Onondaga County has rolled through this program twice now. The first time they did, I believe it was in March, they used $500,000 of their money. And then they just did another one, I think it was 2 weeks ago, of $125,000. The first $500,000 program they went through was sold out in 3.5 hours. I say sell out, there was no money to purchase the vouchers, and the next one they did for $125,000 was done in 35 minutes. So it's a pretty popular program. The city of Oswego, I talked to them about it as well. They did it for a much smaller amount of $10,000. And next slide, please. So how it works is the voucher were dealt in increments of $25 up to 100, so 25, 50, 75, 100. So the county would create a web page for the public to access the vouchers. Now, this web page that we use could be from anywhere, but we've had talks with Onondaga County, and they're willing to share with us as much as we need. So we're not even reinventing the wheel here. We could potentially use what they already have created for us to use. So an individual would print the voucher from online, take it to the restaurant, and the voucher would be turned into a gift card. So for example, if Mr. Lattimore got himself a $25 voucher off the county website, he could go to Prison City, and he could take his $25 of his own. He turns the voucher in, he turns his $25 in, he gets a $50 gift card to use for his next visit there. And so the restaurants would then take that unique voucher number, send it back to the county, and they would get the $25 reimbursement from the county from these funds.
You buy a $25 voucher, you hand it in to the establishment.
With $25 of your own money.
Okay.
They don't buy the voucher.
Yeah, you don't buy the voucher from the county. It's an ID number for the voucher. You
Gotcha.
print off a website that would be generated from, and you'll see here later, we're going to work with maybe CETA or some other.
Person does the match.
Right.
And then.
Right, and then you as the consumer would get a $50 gift card that you only pay $25 for, and the restaurant will sell it. Next slide. So the outreach to the restaurants and the general public, we've had some initial talks with CETA, and this company is called Restaurant QB. That's who kind of led the initiative over in Onondaga County. So they would be done to educate the restaurants on what they need to do and educate the public on how the program actually works. There was Onondaga County, this eligibility list is not like set in stone. This is just what was done with Onondaga County and to a lesser extent the city of Oswego. So no nationally owned chains are allowed to enter this program, no fast food. You must offer a menu. So if it was like just a bar, it wouldn't work. You gotta produce a food menu there. The gift cards cannot be used at date of purchase once again, and the voucher will have expiration dates. I've been told that gift cards in New York State it's a law, they have no expiration date. So once Mr. Lattimore takes his voucher and gets his $50 gift card, that will never expire, but you have a certain amount of time to actually use the voucher itself to get your gift card, if that makes sense.
Don, what timeframe was that? And how did
That was
business
3
work?
weeks. They used 3 weeks. So it was kind of a quick turnaround, but I guess, when they sell it out in like 3 hours, 3 weeks probably isn't all that quick, in the grand scheme of things. And I can tell you from a little bit of the conversation I had, like initially, I haven't talked to Onondaga County about this in like 2 weeks, but initially they were seeing a lot of returns from, pizza shops and Tully's and Copper Top were their bigger ones there. So, and out there, obviously they have locally owned chains like Tully and Copper Top, which we don't really have much of that. So.
Every restaurant participates, some can, they all do. You can go to any restaurant as long as the restaurant's participating.
Right, and that's where the outreach would come in using CETA and the restaurant can be to, educate these owners of businesses of how, they can bring it to them.
And we did talk about trying to get, some of these establishments like Turtle Cove or somewhere that's, off the beaten path and who
Right.
have really, as I said last night, been through hell and back with this pandemic. So that's a focus I know I want Tracy to look into to make sure that we're trying to hit it, across the county, not just, your usual kind of standbys with that have a lot of patrons.
Have we thought about what kind of media and PR we would use to direct people to the website to get a voucher identification number?
So CETA has a couple ideas. That's kind of where we would like lean on them for that type of expertise, because we don't really have a marketing expert on staff here, but yeah, that's definitely something we discussed with them and with the restaurant QB that helped Onondaga County do it. They actually Onondaga County had a marketing campaign all set up, but it went so quick that they didn't even use it. So, it's, yes, so yeah, we will look into that for sure.
Other questions about this program, Mr. Lattimore?
We've noticed that our sales tax is way up this quarter. And so people are spending. It's unfortunate that, a lot of small businesses went out of business. The national chains, they made a lot of money, Wegmans and what have you. And I know like the food stamps and all that, people were doubling that, but they couldn't use them for restaurants, could they? It's unfortunate that they couldn't. Anyways, I'm all in favor of this project, and we should have done it sooner. I hate to see small businesses, some started in this pandemic, and they're hanging on, and it's a credit to them that they hang on during these tough times. So I'm all in favor of help.
Yeah, this one brings up a good question, I think. How is nationally owned chain defined? Does that mean a location in more than one state, or Wegmans? Wegmans does have locations in other states, but they're at this point. But I'm sure there are restaurants that have chains in New York,
right?
Not national. What do we mean by that? I assume what we mean is locally owned business.
Right, yeah, so for example, for a Cayuga County example, if you look at like Applebee's or Chili's, that'd be like a nationally owned chain that we could let them participate if that's what you want to do, but the idea would be to help the small business.
Exactly.
Yeah, the larger one.
Not to put words in Keith's mouth, but he's asking how you weed out that only local participants are able to apply for this type of. Did you say that?
Onondaga County had a list. Yeah.
Set the criteria.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I
Onondaga
didn't
County.
hear. How does it work?
Onondaga had a list
And they,
of participating restaurants, and I'm sure if a nationally owned chain, not a local franchise, but a nationally owned chain with a local manager, right? If they tried to say, put me on the list, they probably said no.
So is there like an application process? The business would say, I want to be part of this, and then it gets.
It was just as simple as them saying they wanted to be part of it, but the outreach there with their economic department and this other entity really was like, I think they had like 250 participants or something like that out there. Obviously we don't have 250 restaurants here, but they had a large participation.
Was it difficult to find restaurants wanting to do it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, correct. It won't be difficult. You're absolutely right. Yes.
Mr. Patrick? Go ahead.
How do you limit people from grabbing up all the coupons that are quick on the computer? Like out in our end of the county, this isn't as well interneted as some of the other parts as the city is, for instance. And by the time you get home from your job and all that, Well, the coupons are gone. How do you limit it? So we don't have people just piling in.
So one of the things I talked with our IT department about, trying to figure that out, and with Onondaga County, is you can limit it by only so, you have to enter your email address, so you can only do X amount of vouchers per email. So that would help limit how many they could put in at once.
One of the things that we briefly talked about, and we don't have the logistics really set up with that, but between Don and Tracy, I know I would, and I know you would be interested in actually going to different parts of the county to enlist those restaurants if they don't have capacity.
Right.
In terms of internet connection or, to talk to the restaurants and then talk about if they do more of a counter service exchange with a voucher versus online. And we don't know if that's practical or not. And maybe we don't do that for the first round if it doesn't work out that way, but certainly I think at some point, maybe with the next round, if we move to not only restaurants, but other small businesses, actually meeting them, where they're at and trying to do that there. Maybe they sell the gift cards a different way, or present their claims a different way than just electronically.
Yep.
So I think that might help for folks who aren't connected. Do you know what is that? You seem confused. You seem confused. I wasn't sure if you knew what I meant.
No, I was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that way you would go to a Turtle Cove and you'd buy the voucher there on hand. I'm sorry?
He's not happy.
Oh, you were happy. Oh, okay.
In the definition of restaurant, would we be, in this first round, would we be looking at some of those small niche kinds of food service industries like Gretchen's Chocolate and Moonflower, macarons?
Yeah, I would say if, like we have up there, if they offer a menu of items like that, then absolutely, yes.
I mean, I think there would be an application. We need certain information from them to ever be able to pay them. So they have to come forward, the list will be made. So when people are asking questions, I think we can evaluate, the different people. I think they did that in a
So, this is a little bit of, it's going to be a process. It's much unlike Onondaga where they were able to do it instantaneously. They had staff, they have marketing professionals on staff. It's just going to be us trying to, cobble together this, but certainly that with working with Onondaga with their website and certainly with Restaurant QB, that's going to help us tremendously get this off the ground. So.
Seeing as how our treasurer or the department gets baked down to the sales tax figures, could we use some other way, some more even-handed way of helping the restaurants? I'm in favor of helping the restaurants, but we could have the treasurer's office determine what their losses were, in revenue, for instance, by the sales tax receipts, and calculate something on that, which would be fair to everybody, rather than this. The ones who were quickest on the draw are gonna get the advantage again.
Amy,
Mr. Benton?
we can't do that. You cannot get sales tax by individual establishments. The state won't release it. You can get it by industry.
The county has it though.
No. Sales tax comes.
I was told in the past, the county, the treasurer's office is the only one allowed to access it.
Well, maybe the rules have changed. I don't know. We can check with them, but I think the answer to that is no. You can't get individual places of business.
We certainly ought to look into it and have a fairer system than just a grab and go, or whatever you want to call it system.
But if that's the concern, then what we need to do is find out a better distribution system.
No, I agree on that.
We have Mr. Foley, then Mr. Lattimore.
Yeah, let me just clarify, the purpose of this is to get people to spend money at those businesses. So the distribution of the actual vouchers to individuals doesn't necessarily matter as long as they are hopefully spending it at various businesses throughout the county, whether it's the southern end, the northern end, or in the middle, right? So we want that to be equitable, right? Where they're, try to be spread it all around. The individuals that actually spend it, it doesn't much matter. I mean, really, that's the intent of this.
And give it all to me and I'll spend it. Or me.
Are you gonna match the 50,000 though?
Yeah, right.
You gotta match the 50,000.
I'll match it. I'll match it.
You want to make sure businesses that need it the most somehow, if that's possible, benefited most from this.
For the people. too.
Right.
People as well, right?
I mean, let me say this, this is one example of a million things we can do. So nobody's saying we can't do another program.
Right.
We have until 2024 to spend this money.
Right.
So if you want to find a way to identify more restaurants that were disproportionately hurt, I think is what you're kind of saying, we could do another thing, you know, if we something else, not this. Because we can give loans and grants to, you know, small businesses and not-for-profits with this money, and that is part of that $6.8 million that we have to find ways to spend it. So I think that we've been talking about beyond restaurants also, hair salons, nail salons, other small-owned businesses that were shut
Dry
down
cleaners.
in further rounds. So this is kind of just like getting our feet wet. People will be unhappy. Believe me, we've talked about this a million ways, trying to think of creative ways. How can we make it fair? How can this? And we keep talking ourselves out of it because it's never going to try to be fair. But that we don't want to not do it because of that. I think, you know, we want to go forward and drive it.
I have Mr. Lattimore, then Trish.
I'm all in favor of this. I mean, Onondaga's experimented with it. They've gotten some of the bugs out of it. I'm sure it's not going to be foolproof. I mean, CETA is a great organization, but I'd also like to see the Chamber of Commerce, which I've always had a fond liking to. I like to see them involved. They deal more with the businesses of restaurants and other things that are chamber members. So we keep them in mind when we're doing this.
Okay, I mean, Trish.
To Henry's point about proportionality and distribution, regarding the people that can purchase the vouchers, we talked a little bit about limited, like looking at tying it to an email address or something like that. Did Onondaga or Oswego limit the number of vouchers that one individual could purchase? Just to speak to Hans's point, there's a lot of people in this community we saw with signing up for the COVID vaccine. They don't know how to get on the internet, or they're slow on the internet. And if things are completely wiped out quickly with this, it's great maybe for the restaurants, but we might leave out a whole segment of the population that, I mean, it is a benefit. So buy one, get one, 50% off. It's a great benefit to our residents as well as our businesses. And I just didn't know if that was being considered, you know, so we could see some equitable distribution or access for our residents as well to this program.
They did not, but they recommended that we do, because they had the same problem. That's why they were recommending limiting it per email address or whatnot. And additionally, I talked with, you know, Brenda Wyman down at OFA, and one thing, you know, an idea would be to maybe set aside a small portion of this for like our senior population who isn't necessarily, you know, I know for my parents, for example, aren't very savvy on, you know, loading their email address into a website, printing off a voucher, but they would definitely want to join the program, right? So maybe we could set aside a percentage of this, and if we're working with CETA, have them handle that. Like maybe the person calls in, leaves their information, and they get mailed the voucher or whatnot. But yeah, there's more to how we're going to roll this out. This is just kind of the skeleton of it, and we're going to add on to it as we go. But yes, those topics have to be.
You don't purchase the voucher though, I'm getting confused.
No, you print the
just
voucher
print
off
it, and then you have to use it and match it.
Correct.
Okay.
Hans?
I'm talking to you tonight, okay?
You have the floor, sir.
Office of the Aging. I'm sure they have a list of people who could use assistance in the form of free vouchers.
Right. And that's what he's suggesting.
Right.
Brenda
talked to
can reach
Brenda
out.
about that today, actually. Yeah, I don't know what it will look like yet, because like we said, this is all new, but and it's additional to what was already done by Onondaga County and the city of Oswego. So Or this would be, I guess, our unique stamp on this program.
Call the question.
Any other questions on this? All right, thank you, Don, for the work you've done so far with this program.
Thanks.
All right, that concludes the presentations for tonight, and I'm going to ask you to turn your attention to Ledge 1. It's been revised since it was first put on this agenda. And I want to turn your attention to this resolution. So it's, I guess I could just go through it and we could talk about it if you need to.
It's hard to see.
If you keep it zoomed in like you had it before.
Just don't want to cut off any. This is whereas the American Rescue Plan Act has allocated funding to counties in order to help with recovery from COVID-19, which includes authorization to spend these funds on government services up to the amount of lost revenues due to COVID-19 impacts. And this is directly relating to the lost revenues that Lynn had pointed out. Whereas Cayuga County is allocated $14,837,990 to the ARPA or through the ARPA, of which a portion of these funds can be used to provide government services, such as the capital project to revitalize Emerson Park. And whereas a special legislative meeting was held today, was held on the 19th of May at Emerson Park, where a presentation was given by Trowbridge Wolf Michaels Landscape Architects to redevelop Emerson Park as a destination park, which will have positive economic impact on the county. Whereas the Cayuga County Legislature would like to allocate funds to this project to be used to cover project expenditures or to be used as matching funds for the solicitation, of grant funds from several sources, including New York State foundations and foundations. Now therefore be it resolved. A capital H account 21-02 be established for the revitalization project at Emerson Park. Be it further resolved, I guess this is the new thing that you may not have seen until today. In the event that it becomes necessary to undertake Emerson Park redesign project in phases, meaning that we can't find all the funding at one time and satisfy all of the redesign work that was given to us on the 19th. Cayuga County Legislature shall provide necessary authorizations for those phases of which funds are available and modify, if necessary, the capital project budget to reflect the same. So that means if we don't have all of the funding at once, this body decides what happens at Emerson Park as a group. So if we, if we don't get $20 million and we don't do the whole thing, then we say, what do we want to do up there? And then we make that decision.
So we prioritize the phases.
You prioritize.
And that project is the amphitheater, the concessions, the playground, and does it include then the shelters and all the kind of what I consider the minor stuff? Okay,
Right.
so we're able to do it all, or it's going to be broken out in some way. It comes back to this body to establish priorities.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I will move that.
Wait, any discussion on this?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm all in favor of what was there 100 years ago, which was the centerpiece of central New York. When it was Deauville Island, everybody in the summertime would come to Cayuga County for a dip in the lake and entertainment, what have you, and it'd be nice to bring it back again. I've been to Syracuse with their music venues, and they seem to do all right. I just want to make sure that we have in the room, people who are involved in stages and sound systems and location of the playground, could interfere with the amphitheater. So I want to make sure that, I know that the architects that we have are excellent, but we have some local talent that's available to look at that system before we build it or before we agree on what happens. I've been asking for a new playground, and this is a fantastic playground. but I want to make sure it doesn't compete with the soundstage. So I want to make sure that people look at it other than our eyes, people who have been in the music business for the last 30 years, and make sure that they see it before we build it.
Absolutely. I think maybe Mr. Delastro can just speak to that briefly. I know that we have talked with presenters like Dan Small's Entertainment out of Ithaca and some others to talk about the positioning of like the stage, the playground. Certainly, we've talked with Merry-Go-Round Playhouse to see what would interfere noise-wise or parking-wise or whatever with them as well. But I don't know if you have wanted to add anything.
No, and then you're absolutely right. That was a part of the conversation very early on was, it's kind of the do no harm. You obviously want to be able to create a permanent home for these events that are already happening and expand that. And so the very early conversations involved both our current tenants, which would be A&M Catering, it has effects on the pavilion operations as well as the theater, as well as all of the neighbors to our property. So we've been inclusive of them from the very beginning to make sure that as we try to create a home and increase the ability for these events to grow, that we're sensitive to those things. And they will continue to be a part of that conversation going forward. I think Trowbridge Wolf, our landscape architect company, has been excellent at collecting and collating all that information and making sure that that is reflected in there, to the point where we've talked about the interaction of the concert venue with the playground and having access to both of those separately at all times, and retaining that access and making sure that if we have areas that can be separated, like for a concert, that it doesn't impact the other events or other programs within the park. And they're complicated pieces, and so that's an excellent point that you make, and I think that we've addressed that so far, but we will continue to. As funding becomes available to say, this is what's going to be constructed.
Well, I mean, Trowbridge, they're great at design, but a person who's toured all of Europe in different venues, has done music for the last, 45 years. Those people should be brought in the room to make sure that it's done right, not by the architects, but by the artists, by the, people who would go to that venue.
Sure, and I think that level of granularity will come with construction documents. And we're at the concept phase to lay out how they interact with each other, but we will absolutely have to go back both to promoters and artists too, to make sure that what we're providing is usable to them. So I agree.
Yeah, certainly as we talk to vendors, as we're talking about equipment and things, I'm sure vendors, who have experience putting in these things, stages or playgrounds, I'm sure lots of things will be, talked about and discussed in that time. Question, Mr. Strong?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The thing that I'm a little concerned about is I have yet to see a list of priorities for the county for this money. I don't know where this project, not to say that it's bad or good, rates in that list of priorities.
Sure.
And I have a concern about that. I'm not saying this project is not, deserving of our attention tonight, but I don't know where, the list of priorities is.
Right.
And where that money, everybody says it's $7 million this year and 7 next year, but that's a drop in the bucket that can be spent in the snap of a finger on a major project. And I'm not saying this isn't, but I don't see where this is in that list of priorities. And I don't know if we've established one yet.
No, you will establish that list after we get some feedback. As I had said, we just solicited.
So are we putting the cart before the horse a little bit by saying we're going to allocate $1 million to this project when we don't know where it rates in that list?
So this body has had a very long-standing working relationship with the Emerson Park. We voted on a master plan here before I was a legislator in 2015. We funded everything to go forward with this project, including all the designs that were presented to you on May 19th. So this is a project that is a logical next step. That's a shovel-ready type of a project. It's a project that is in this climate post-COVID, or as we're heading in recovery here, is a great project for other places to help us fund. So to me, this is a timing issue with funding that, we have an exciting opportunity to invest in something that can help folks of all ages, economic backgrounds, levels of physical ability, families, all kinds of people in all kinds of ways, between concerts, playgrounds. We're working closely with Seymour Library. We work closely with all this crazy programming and wonderful ideas, including the YMCA, including a potential partnership with the play space in Auburn, so that we have some educational opportunities, partner with Merry-Go-Round Playhouse for some theater opportunities for children's theater and other, just offer a community stage, a stage that could be used for graduations or other sporting events. To me, this is a great project to showcase Cayuga County, especially coming out of this pandemic. And it is, quite honestly, one of the most ready projects we have in the county. So this is, an opportunity. So it's whether or not you want to look at it as an opportunity to invest in our public, or, if you wanted to wait, that's entirely on this body. But that's, I guess as long as I've been here, this is the discussion that has been happening here, that we've been leading up to this point. I guess why stop now? But that's up to this spot. Is that anything else to offer? Yes.
The answer, Mark's question, I believe that this $1 million is going to spur from the different the Emersons and some of the other foundations. And we're rich with foundations in regards to being a small city in upstate New York. This investment will, I believe, if Steve might want to talk to the, hopefully that's all we got to spend there when we get done with all the different people, all the different pots of money that we can go into. So, like you say, priority. I'd love to see a mega site at exit, at the Weedsport exit. I'd ready, shovel ready, not like we had our industrial spot, which had to have wires and other things. I think that that's a priority, but what do I know? But I think this project's ready to go. And I think the $1 million that we spend today, or that we allocate, I think we pick up another 6. If Steve or somebody could maybe talk about how many pots.
Thank you. You talked about the options many times.
Well, I guess I just wanted to clarify for Legislator Strong, who's new and hasn't been part of these ongoing conversations.
I think that takes priority. We can vote on it to continue discussion, but
okay,
do that. I would appreciate it.
All right. Can I get a motion?
We have a motion.
Oh, and you had a second. Okay, we have the discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Veteran Strong.
We should at least have a chance to speak about these things. This, to me, it's a terrible point of view we're presenting here. The first thing we act on out of this money is not our wants, our needs, okay, which are many. It's our wants, what we want. This is like a little kid. It's not going for to put, the quarter you gave it into the piggy bank. It's going to spend it. It's going to buy candy. That's what we're doing, and this is ridiculous. The plans that are there right now, I've asked several people, in my bailiwick, what they say to them, and they just shake their head. One guy I talked to started right off, instead of answering me, he just mentioned, well, let's see, there's, what's it may call it, county road, and there's that county road, and there's potholes in that county road. When are they gonna be fixed? That was a reply. But here we go, we're allocating $1 million for our candy store, basically. Thank you.
Just a comment, if I may, Madam Chair. I'm not against the project, and I want to make that very clear. I'm concerned that we don't have holistic priorities, and as you pointed out, I have not been privy to all the conversations prior to me coming on the legislature with the Emerson project. But like I said, I think there needs to be a priority list, if you want to use that term, established to what we do with this money. And again, I'm not opposed to the project. I'm just, I'm a little leery, if you want to use that term, about, you know, we allocate $1 million and then somewhere we fall short of $1 million of a higher priority. That's my concern.
Yeah. That's John. Comment?
I just wanted to make a few comments myself, and I do recognize your points of view of wanting to see a full project list before making any decisions about how we spend the money. I fully support this. I've supported Emerson Park investment from day one. It's a county park that with these physical infrastructure investments will support the programming plan that was developed in 2019, I believe. This builds on decades of planning work and strategic investments in the park that have occurred over years. And I really do believe that these physical infrastructure investments are going to pay us back in revenue through the park that we are unable to realize right now because we don't have these facilities in place. I look at it as an investment for our youth, for future generations. This is an unbelievable historic waterfront park. It's unmatched, in my opinion. We have so many beautiful resources in this county. And right now we are in a position where people are moving here, they're visiting here. We're seeing increases in our tax revenue and our sales tax and our occupancy tax. And the way I look at this is that we're striking while the iron is hot. We're making this strategic critical investment in ourselves. It's going to leverage 10 times over money from outside investors. And I'm glad that we're not waiting. I think that the sooner we can get this off the ground, the better. And I do appreciate your points of view, but I'm excited that this is going forward. And I know not everybody in the county is familiar with Emerson Park or utilizes it, but for me, growing up in this county, this was my access to the lake. We didn't have lakefront property. This is where I learned to swim. This is what I hope that future generations could continue to enjoy this park and love it as much as I did growing up in this community. And we have a great team that's overseeing it. The Parks Commission has been incredible, staying on point with us for forever. So I'm glad to see it move forward.
So that it's already been voted on. We probably shouldn't be talking about it until time for the next thing. But to Hans and Mark's point, I tend to agree with them somewhat. That one is, it could have been explained more thoroughly. It could have been explained how the American Recovery Funds can qualify for a project like this. That would have been low hanging fruit to kind of just describe that a little bit more.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
This is taking the money, the flexible money that Lynn just explained to you, where we attributed lost revenue due to COVID that is amounting approximately at this point, $8 million. So this is how funding this project is then becomes eligible or, is acceptable with use of this money.
I mean, just to be able to explain that to the public would have been good in case they wondered. And then secondly is, to Mark's point, when we're talking about a list of projects, we're also talking about a list of big ideas in the county, wants versus need. What is the priority of putting roads, bridges, water, infrastructure, broadband over this, right? I don't think that one person being against this necessarily means they're even against investing in Emerson Park as much as they're saying what makes this more special than those other projects, right? And I, I think the people in my district would want Emerson Park to flourish, and so I'm voting for this, but I think that there has to be a larger discussion that says, okay, we have to prioritize all of those things, and, this is one of them. Ask and we'll move forward with it, but, it's good points.
They are good points, and in developing that priority list, it's going to be all of your jobs. You're the ones that get to develop that priority list. I'm not coming to you with a priority list. Lynn's not making that list. Don's not making that list. You're making that list. But this was identified as something that was shovel ready and something we've invested in up to this point. The next resolution.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't think we voted.
Oh, we did. We
Yeah, you
voted.
No, we voted
Petcher.
to close, we voted to close discussion, which then we continue to discuss, but.
That was not what I got that from, no, that's not what I got either. There was an all in favor and Petcher and Strong opposed.
The next one is then, we can take this specifically from the eligibility requirements of the funding, because we're helping local businesses that were hardest impacted for COVID. So this is something that would take from the inflexible spending from that amount. So this is a resolution for the restaurant voucher program. I will skip down to the third whereas. A restaurant voucher program provides 50% county subsidy toward the purchase of gift cards, will stimulate patronage of restaurants within Cayuga County. And can I have a motion on this one?
A motion.
Mr. Lattimore?
Second. This
Any
is
discussion?
$100,000 to this project.
Yes, so this is $100,000 taken from funding. Question? Yes.
Madam Chair,
Oh, I'm sorry. It's technically two. No, it's one.
That's correct.
Oh, could increase revenue account
Yes.
and increase appropriation. Okay, go ahead.
I think that was basically my question. I see two different account numbers and 100,000 twice. Is it 100,000 or 200,000?
Gotta put it in.
Did I get that
It's
clarified?
100,000, where we're basically bringing the money, the expenditures and the revenue into the budget. So it's a budget neutral thing. So right now, the $7 million is sitting in a bank account. It's not in the budget anywhere for us to spend it. So that's what I'm doing with this resolution. And it'll have no impact on the budget because I can bring in the $100,000 of revenue and bring in $100,000 of expenditure so we can do it. So that one account's the expenditure and one's the revenue account.
So all in all, it's just $100,000. Yeah. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. For the same reasons, okay, that we should have a plan to spend all of the money rather than piecemeal it out like we're doing.
Point well taken.
Okay, the last one. It's also one that fits the eligibility requirements for our local health departments who have been impacted greatly by COVID-19. This is a $200,000 allocation to the health department. Again, it's written the same way, Mr. Strong and everyone else for your, we have to take that money in and then do the appropriate. No, it was a really good question. Because it got me off guard too. So can I have a motion for Ledge 3?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this?
Just to clarify, all of this money that's being put into the health department's budget will have to be tracked and claimed. I mean, you'll have to keep
Yeah,
track
they
of
say
all
there'll
of
be
this.
Quarterly reports that we're gonna have to report on the funding that is spent here.
Further discussion?
Is any of this money gonna give another raise to the head of the department?
No, you'd have to do a separate resolution to amend anybody's salary.
In the local law.
Or the chair?
Are you giving me a raise?
Yeah.
You giving me a raise?
What?
Are you giving
I'm
me a
asking
raise?
if any of the money is dedicated in that direction.
Mr. Petrie, you're kind of assuming I have the power to do those things on my own, and that is not the case.
Okay.
So, I'm one of 15. You're also one of 15. We're all in this together, so. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
For the same reasons, this will be a plan to spend all the money before we spend it.
Yes. That would be directly part of that plan. That is carried.
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor? No.
So that's Wednesday.
They're big spenders up there.
Just starting.
We're all part of it.
Just starting.
There's a couple, yeah, so yesterday.